Imagine standing on a narrow path, surrounded by mountains and the vast Persian army. With only 300 warriors by your side, what made these men so brave? The true story behind the Battle of Thermopylae is far more complex than legend would have you believe. Let's uncover the secrets of this historic stand. The Battle of Thermopylae, fought in for 80 BC, has long been immortalized as a symbol of courage and resistance. It was the defining moment when a small Greek force, led by King Leonidas of Sparta, faced off against the immense Persian army under King Xerxes. But what led to this iconic confrontation? To understand the true story, we must first dive into the complex political and military landscape of the ancient world. At the time, Greece was not a unified country, but a collection of city-states, each with its own form of government and way of life. The most powerful of these city-states were Athens and Sparta. Sparta was renowned for its military prowess, a society built around the discipline and training of its warriors, while Athens was a center of culture, philosophy, and naval power. Tensions between these two cities and others were common. But the looming threat of Persia would force them to temporarily set aside their differences. Persia, under the rule of King Darius I, had already begun its westward expansion. The Persian Empire was vast, stretching from Asia Minor all the way to India. In 490 BC, Persia attempted to conquer Greece, and the resulting Battle of Marathon saw the Greek forces defeat the Persians despite being vastly outnumbered. However, Darius's son, Xerxes, was determined to finish what his father had started. In 480 BC, he amassed an enormous army, said to have been over 1 million strong, and set his sights on Greece once again. The Greek city-states, realizing the magnitude of the threat, put aside their differences and formed a loose alliance. However, not every city-state was willing to take the risk of going to war. Some, like Thebes, chose to collaborate with the Persians. But the cities of Athens and Sparta, alongside a few others, understood that they could not survive divided. The fate of their civilizations now rested on their ability to resist the Persian advance. As Xerxes' army advanced through Greece, the Greeks knew they had to choose a place to make their stand. The narrow pass at Thermopylae, located between the mountains and the sea, became the chosen battleground. This location was crucial for the Greeks. It was a choke point, a narrow corridor that would nullify the Persians' numerical advantage, allowing the Greek forces to hold their ground against a much larger enemy. However, the Greeks did not have the luxury of time. The Persian forces were rapidly advancing, and the Greeks needed to act fast to delay the invasion and buy time for the rest of the Greek forces to prepare for war. But who would lead the defense? The Greek force was a mix of soldiers from various city-states, but the most famous of them were the 300 Spartans. Led by King Leonidas, the Spartan warriors were the best-trained soldiers in the Greek world, known for their strength, discipline, and unwavering loyalty. Sparta had trained its citizens to be warriors from a young age, instilling in them a fierce sense of duty and honor. It was this commitment that would come to define their legendary stand at Thermopylae. The decision to send such a small force to face the Persians may seem like an act of madness, but it was a strategic move. Leonidas and his men knew they could not win by numbers alone. Instead, they relied on their superior training, their deep knowledge of the terrain, and the hope that their sacrifice would inspire the rest of Greece to unite against the invader. Little did they know, their stand at Thermopylae would become one of the most iconic battles in history, a testament to the power of courage, honor, and determination. But the true story of Thermopylae is not just about the bravery of the Spartans. It's about the larger Greek resistance to Persian imperialism, the alliances forged, and the sacrifices made by warriors from all over Greece. While the 300 Spartans were the most famous, they were not the only ones who fought at Thermopylae. The true story is far richer, more complex, and more inspiring than the myth that has been passed down through the ages. As the Persian forces advanced through Greece, the Greeks knew that they were facing an army far larger and more powerful than their own. The Greeks' strategy was not one of outright conquest, but of delay and defense. By choosing Thermopylae as their battleground, they aimed to use the terrain to their advantage. The narrow pass, bordered by steep mountains and the Aegean Sea, would limit the ability of the Persians to fully deploy their massive army. This would force Xerxes' troops to fight in a confined space, preventing them from using their overwhelming numbers effectively. Leonidas, the Spartan king, understood that the Greeks were at a disadvantage in terms of sheer numbers. Historians estimate that the Persian army numbered over 1 million soldiers, while the Greek forces at Thermopylae were only around 7,000 strong. Of these, the most famous were the 300 Spartan warriors, chosen for their unmatched fighting skills and fierce discipline. But the rest of the Greek forces were no slouches. Either Athenians, Thespians, and other Greek allies fought alongside the Spartans, forming a united front against the Persian invasion. The Greek defense strategy was based on two key elements: the terrain and the formation of their soldiers. The terrain of Thermopylae was perfect for the Greeks. The narrow pass prevented the Persians from using their superior numbers to encircle the defenders. The Greek forces positioned themselves in a dense formation known as the phalanx, which was a wall of shields and spears. This formation allowed the Greeks to fight effectively in close quarters, using their spears to stab at the enemy while staying protected behind their large shields. The Spartan warriors, known for their rigorous training and discipline, were at the heart of this strategy. Spartan society had one primary purpose: to produce the finest soldiers in the world. From the age of 7, Spartan boys were trained in the art of war, enduring harsh physical conditioning and military exercises. By the time they reached adulthood, these men were not just soldiers, they were a living testament to the power of Spartan society. Leonidas, as the leader of the Spartans, was not only a king, but also a warrior. He was a man who led from the front, inspiring his troops by example. Unlike many other kings who would command their armies from a safe distance, Leonidas stood shoulder to shoulder with his men, ready to face the Persian onslaught. This leadership style earned him the unwavering loyalty and respect of his troops, especially his 300 Spartans, who followed him into the narrow pass with no fear of death. The Persian army approached. Xerxes, the Persian king, believed that the Greeks would quickly retreat. He had underestimated the resolve and unity of the Greek city-states. Xerxes sent wave after wave of his soldiers into the pass, but the Greeks, utilizing their superior tactics and knowledge of the terrain, held their ground. For 2 days, the Greeks repelled the Persian forces, inflicting heavy casualties on the invaders. But the Persians were relentless. Xerxes, realizing that his initial attacks were not working, began to think of alternative strategies. He sent his elite immortal forces an elite Persian unit into the battle, hoping that their strength and skill would break the Greek line. Yet the Greeks held firm, their phalanx impenetrable. The Persians were beginning to realize that their numbers alone would not guarantee victory. The Greek success at Thermopylae was not just about their superior strategy. It was also about their bravery and determination to fight for their homes and way of life. The Persian Empire under Xerxes sought to impose its will on the Greek world. And the Greeks knew that if they failed at Thermopylae, it would be the beginning of the end for their freedom. It was a fight for survival, and the Greeks, despite their small numbers, were willing to die for their cause. However, despite their resilience, the Greeks could not hold out forever. The Persians were simply too numerous, and their resources too vast. The battle, though a strategic victory for the Greeks in terms of slowing the Persian advance, was also a costly one. The Greeks knew that they could not stop the Persian onslaught alone, and that more battles lay ahead. The true significance of Thermopylae lay not in the victory, but in the message it sent to the rest of Greece. It proved that the Persian army, despite its size and power, could be held at bay by determined, disciplined defenders. After 2 days of fierce fighting, the Greek forces at Thermopylae found themselves facing a dire situation. Though they had inflicted heavy casualties on the Persian army, the defenders were running low on resources and morale. On the 3rd day, a betrayal would change the course of the battle. A local Greek trader named Ephialtes revealed to Xerxes the existence of a secret mountain pass that would allow the Persian army to outflank the Greeks and surround them from behind. With this newfound knowledge, Xerxes quickly moved a portion of his forces through the pass, and by dawn, the Persian army had encircled the Greeks. Realizing that they were now trapped, Leonidas made the difficult decision to stay and fight, knowing that his men would not survive if they tried to retreat. He sent most of the Greek forces to safety, instructing them to withdraw and regroup, while he and his 300 Spartans, along with a small contingent of Thespians and Thebans, remained to make a final stand. This decision to stay and fight, despite the overwhelming odds, would go down in history as one of the greatest acts of courage and sacrifice. Leonidas knew that his warriors were outnumbered, but he also understood that his actions would inspire the rest of Greece to unite against the Persian threat. The 300 Spartans, along with the other Greek warriors, knew they were walking into certain death, but they were willing to make that ultimate sacrifice for their homeland. The final stand at Thermopylae was a brutal and bloody affair. The Persians, now encircling the Greeks on all sides, launched wave after wave of attacks. Despite being vastly outnumbered, the Spartans fought with relentless determination. Cutting down Persian soldiers with their spears and swords, the phalanx formation, which had served them so well in the earlier days of the battle, was now a desperate defense against the overwhelming numbers of the Persians. However, the Greeks were not only fighting for their lives, they were fighting for something far greater: their freedom and the future of their city-states. The Spartans, in particular, were driven by a sense of duty and honor. A Spartan society was built on the belief that a warrior's purpose was to protect the land and its people, even at the cost of their own lives. This unwavering commitment to their ideals made the Spartans nearly unstoppable on the battlefield, even in the face of certain death. As the day wore on, the Greeks fought valiantly, refusing to yield to the Persian forces. But one by one, the warriors fell. Leonidas, the king who had led his men into battle, was killed in the final moments of the fight. His death, however, was not in vain. His sacrifice, and the sacrifice of the 300 Spartans, became a rallying cry for the Greek world. News of their bravery spread across Greece, and the memory of their stand at Thermopylae inspired countless warriors to take up arms against the Persian invaders. Despite the defeat, the Greek resistance at Thermopylae was far from over. The battle, though a loss in military terms, had accomplished its goal. It bought time for the Greek city-states to prepare for the next phase of the war. The heroism displayed at Thermopylae ignited a fire within the hearts of the Greek people, and their resolve to defeat the Persians only grew stronger. In the aftermath of the battle, the Greeks regrouped and began to focus on their naval forces. The Persian army, despite their victory at Thermopylae, was not invincible. The naval battle at Salamis, fought shortly after Thermopylae, would prove to be a turning point in the war. As the Greeks decisively defeated the Persian fleet, with the Persian navy crippled and their morale shaken, Xerxes' forces were forced to retreat, and the Greek city-states were able to push the Persians out of Greece. The heroic last stand at Thermopylae remains one of the most iconic moments in history. It is a story of courage, sacrifice, and the belief that even in the face of overwhelming odds, one can make a difference. The 300 Spartans, along with their Greek allies, proved that the power of unity, honor, and determination could stand up against the might of an empire. The true legacy of Thermopylae lies not in the battle's outcome, but in the enduring spirit it ignited across Greece, ultimately leading to the downfall of the Persian Empire and the preservation of Greek freedom. The Battle of Thermopylae, despite its tragic end for the Greek defenders, became a symbol of resilience, courage, and the unbreakable spirit of the human will. In the years following the battle, the story of the 300 Spartans and their heroic stand against the Persian Empire would inspire generations, not just in Greece, but across the world. The legacy of Thermopylae extends far beyond the battlefield. Its impact on history and culture is profound and lasting. After the battle, the Greeks rallied around the memory of their fallen heroes. The sacrifice of the 300 Spartans, along with the other Greek soldiers who stayed to fight, became a beacon of hope and pride for the Greek world. The city of Sparta, already known for its militaristic society, became synonymous with bravery and self-sacrifice. The myth of Thermopylae was woven into the fabric of Greek identity, and it inspired countless works of art, literature, and philosophy. One of the most enduring aspects of the legacy of Thermopylae is the idea of the last stand, the notion that a small force, when motivated by the right ideals, can make a significant impact even against overwhelming odds. This theme has resonated throughout history and has been used as a metaphor for countless struggles. From the Battle of the Alamo to World War II, Thermopylae showed that the human spirit, when united in purpose, could defy the seemingly impossible. The influence of Thermopylae extends beyond the ancient world. In the 19th century, the battle was revived in the Western imagination, particularly in the context of the Napoleonic Wars and the American Civil War. The heroism of the Spartans was used as a rallying cry for soldiers, fighting against tyranny and oppression. In modern times, Thermopylae has continued to inspire films, books, and other forms of media, including the famous 1962 film The 300 Spartans and the 2006 blockbuster 300, which portrayed the battle as an epic struggle between freedom and despotism. But the true legacy of Thermopylae is not just in the stories and legends that followed. It is also in the very real consequences the battle had for the outcome of the Persian Wars. The stand at Thermopylae delayed the Persian advance into Greece, buying critical time for the Greek forces to regroup and prepare for the next phase of the war. This delay allowed the Greek navy to decisively defeat the Persian fleet at the Battle of Salamis, crippling Xerxes' naval power and forcing him to retreat. The Persian Empire's defeat at Salamis, combined with the subsequent Greek victories at Plataea and Mycale, effectively ended Persian ambitions of conquering Greece. In many ways, the Battle of Thermopylae marked the beginning of the decline of the Persian Empire in the West. The defeat at Thermopylae, followed by the subsequent Greek victories, shattered the aura of invincibility that had surrounded the Persian Empire. The Greeks, united by their shared experience of the battle and motivated by the memory of their fallen heroes, pushed the Persians back and preserved their independence. This victory ensured that the Greek city-states would remain free, allowing for the flourishing of Greek culture, philosophy, and democracy. The significance of Thermopylae was also recognized by the Persians themselves. After the battle, Xerxes is said to have ordered the construction of a monument to the fallen Spartans, a gesture that acknowledged the valor of his enemies, even in defeat. The Persian king, despite his victory, was aware that the stand at Thermopylae had exposed the vulnerability of his empire. He may have won the battle, but the true victory lay in the spirit of the Greeks, who would not be easily subdued. The memory of the 300 Spartans has continued to inspire warriors, leaders, and individuals throughout history. The phrase "Remember Thermopylae" became a rallying cry for military leaders and soldiers who found themselves facing seemingly insurmountable odds. It serves as a reminder that even in the darkest of moments, honor, courage, and the will to fight for a cause greater than oneself can make all the difference. Today, the site of the Battle of Thermopylae stands as a solemn reminder of the sacrifices made by those who fought there. A memorial to the 300 Spartans, as well as the other Greek warriors who perished, was erected at the site, marking the spot where the last stand took place. The monument serves as a tribute to their bravery and an enduring symbol of the values that defined the ancient Greek world: freedom, honor, and the courage to stand up against tyranny. The true story behind the Battle of Thermopylae is a story of heroism and sacrifice that transcends time. It is a story that continues to inspire, reminding us of the power of the human spirit to overcome adversity, no matter how great the odds. The legacy of Thermopylae is not just about the battle itself, but about the enduring strength of the ideals it represents: courage in the face of overwhelming adversity and the unyielding belief that even the smallest force can make a difference in the fight for freedom.